It's entertaining, it's convenient, and it's always there. But is television the babysitter that could rewire your child's brain? Welcome to Click. I'm Spencer Kelly. Every so often on this programme, we like to cover the latest tech offering for kids. For example, the new robust tablets aimed specifically at children. But recently, there have been growing concerns voiced by some fairly eminent experts over the damage that a gift like that could do. The question we should all be asking ourselves, they say, is should young children be exposed to screens at all? Whether it's TV made for children or tablets made for adults, it's almost impossible for today's kids to grow up without being captivated by brightly dancing, two-dimensional characters on one screen or another. Children's instinctive sensitivity to sudden changes in sound and vision is apparent from birth. Infants, when lying on their backs on the floor, will crane their necks to watch TV. But there is growing concern around the world that very young children shouldn't watch any screens at all. In the US, paediatric and government guidelines recommend that no child under 2 be exposed to any screens. And Michelle Obama, in her official capacity, has been campaigning to curtail screen watching for under 2s.
Limiting screen time for all kids, but making sure we eliminate it for kids under 2. And I know a lot of parents get shocked by that.
France has already banned digital terrestrial TV aimed at children under 3, while Australia and Canada have similar recommendations and guidelines. Aside from the existing concerns over promoting childhood obesity, new research suggests that there are even more problems when leaving small children transfixed in front of screens. Arik Sigman's research looks at studies done on the amount of time spent looking at screens and the physical changes which occur. He highlights concerns that are different from the old medical worries about children getting fatter by sitting in front of the telly.
Early screen viewing is likely to lead to long periods of viewing for the rest of your life. That the way you view screens when you're young are habits you pick up for ever after, it seems. What's implicated in this is a chemical called dopamine. This may be the case. Dopamine is produced when we see something that is interesting or new, but it also has a second function. Dopamine is also the neurochemical involved in most addictions. It's the reward chemicals that gives us the good feeling when we do something. There are concerns amongst neuroscientists that this dopamine being produced every single day for many years may change the reward circuitry in a child's brain and make them more dependent upon screen media.
When PCs first became household items, there was nothing entertaining on them. And come to think of it, TV didn't offer very much for young kids either. Now, screens have the power to mesmerise endlessly. Infant screen viewing is increasingly common, and some estimate that more than 90% of young children, in the US at least, start regularly watching TV well before the age of 2, in spite of recommendations to the contrary. At Oxford University, Baroness Greenfield has been conducting cutting-edge experiments on rat brains to find out how the neurotransmitter dopamine affects large groups of brain cells.
Now, we know quite a lot about dopamine. It has many jobs in the brain, and somehow it's related to arousal, addiction, reward, in very subtle ways in which it will change the whole brain. Now, it's also believed that perhaps video gaming taps into this system, and most recently there was a study out where it showed the area of the brain related to dopamine was actually enhanced in kids that were compulsive video gamers, rather similar to compulsive gamblers.
This is little Donya. She was 8 months old when her parents realised that she wouldn't eat without help from their iPad. They were then forced to take the tablet along with them wherever they went. She was eventually weaned from the screen after advice from paediatricians. But that's not to say that all screens and all types of content are equally bad.
I think there's a world of difference in how the screen technologies are used. For example, if you read a story to your kid on Kindle, for example, that's not the same as the child themselves interacting independently with an iPad.
Now, certainly program makers know this, although they don't know the name dopamine. They know that the more edits you put into a cartoon or a program, the more likely it is to keep a child's interest up to a certain point. So providing the child with a lot of novelty is likely to produce higher levels of dopamine in the child's brain, making the child seek more and more screen time to satisfy their need for more dopamine. This is speculation at the moment, but there are very good reasons to think that this speculation is correct.
Indeed, some experts recommend that what a very young child watches should have as few edits in as possible, like these old programmes from the 1950s. In fact, it seems the old Watch with Mother era may have had the right idea all along.
Can you hear anything? I wonder what's in the box. Do you know, children?
Near to Hollywood, at the heart of the silver screen industries, Children's Digital Media Center at Los Angeles aims to study children's interaction with the new forms of digital media and see how these affect their offline lives and long-term development.
If a parent is sitting next to a child while they're looking at these screens and is saying, let's say the screen says a word and the parent says, you know, look, happy, the baby is happy, and points to it, actually, a child can learn from that, even very young children, because there's social interaction. At a certain age, screens actually can teach. Once a child understands that this screen is a way to comprehend the world.
But even then, the child needs to be at a certain stage in their development.
Children need to understand that this 2D flat screen represents their real world, and that doesn't happen usually until closer to 2 years. So they're not really learning. But without social interaction, screens at young ages don't teach anything.
Experts disagree on which particular areas of development can be affected by watching screens. For example, although children with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder do spend more time playing video games and watching TV, this is thought to be a symptom of the condition, not a cause. Different countries are reacting differently to studies done on children and screens. Despite France, Canada and Australia's stance against infant viewing, as recently as 2008, the UK recommended children be exposed to technology, computers and screens from a very young age. Since then, the advice has been removed, but the UK currently has no medical or governmental guidelines. The BBC's CBeebies channel is one of the most prominent stations aimed at small children in the UK, and some of its content online and on screen seems to imply that very young viewers are welcome.
Happy first birthday.
CBeebies told us its programming was aimed at children of 2 years and older, and these particular sections were aired to allow older siblings and family members to share in the birthday celebrations. Baby TV, owned by News Corporation, says it targets children up to 4 years old. And despite France's concerns, it can't be banned within the EU because it's been granted a licence to broadcast in one country, the UK. If you watch it in France, however, you also see regular warnings about the dangers of young viewing. Now look, 2.5 years ago I became a parent for the first time, and I absolutely admit TV can be very useful. If I need to occupy him for a few minutes while I climb up a ladder, I can put a program on. And if we need him to calm down before he goes to bed in the evening, we can sit down and watch a cartoon together. Am I really damaging my son's brain?
Some parents don't have the luxury of having someone else take care of their child, or they need to work, and so the screen becomes a babysitter, helpful sort of tool. But if you leave your child in front of the screen for too long as a babysitter, there is a danger that they won't learn in the same way that a child who would be socially interacting with you, a child that follows a parent around who's doing just the laundry and then cooking and just follows the parent around versus a child sitting in front of a TV, will learn more words.
I think that what we need to do is adopt a variety of measures. First of all, I think the print and broadcast media should start, as this programme is doing, to promote the discussion and to get people thinking about it. I think we need more surveys. Now, surveys and trends are not experiments, but no more was smoking and lung cancer in the 50s a experiment, but people certainly started to see a link, and then eventually epidemiologists come along and they establish that one thing may have caused the other.
So while the jury is out on whether screen entertainment poses a serious risk to very small children, the advice from some government health departments, paediatric medical organisations and experts is to err on the side of caution for the time being and let the little ones snuggle up with a good book instead. And if you have any thoughts on the safety of screens for children, or if you have any personal experience of their effect, then please do drop us a line. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/bbcclick, and we're on Twitter at bbcclickisus. Okay, next up, it's this week's tech news.
The escalating conflict between Israel and the Palestinians has been mirrored online. Both the Israeli army and Hamas have been giving live commentaries of their operations over Twitter. And activists from the hacking collective Anonymous have been instrumental in many of the estimated 60 million largely failed hacking attempts on Israeli websites. Anonymous says its campaign is in response to what it says is a threat by the Israeli government to shut down internet connections in Gaza. Meanwhile, the Israeli Defense Force has been uploading daily videos to its YouTube channel and is also hosting a game on its website where frequent visitors can win badges and achievements. Facebook users will soon be able to make calls to friends both directly on the site or using its mobile app. Party Call is set to compete with the likes of Skype and WhatsApp. It lets users make private or group calls and then post details to their profiles. The service was developed by Orange in France and will be launched there first next summer, with other countries to follow. And finally, the world's oldest electronic computer was switched on this week for the first time in a quarter of a century. Built in 1951, which was considered a supercomputer in its time, today it's essentially a 2-metre tall giant calculator weighing 2.5 tons. Volunteers at the National Museum of Computing at Bletchley Park spent 3 years reconstructing its 10,000 moving parts. Some achievement.
And that's it for the short version of this week's programme. If you'd like to comment on either of the reports that you've seen, you can, and our website contains details of how to do so. bbc.co.uk/click is the address you need. That is also where you'll find a link to the full-length version of this week's programme, which you can watch through iPlayer. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.